Friends, hello everyone. I am very glad to see you on my channel. And today, we are going to have a very unusual lesson. Today, I will teach you how to transfer a drawing to your sheet. For example, you have some small drawing, for example like this, and you need to transfer it to your sheet twice as much, or 3 times, or 1.5 times, it doesn't matter. Or vice versa, you have a big sheet, and you have a big picture, and you need to make it smaller. In fact, I was surprised that there are practically no such videos on the internet at all. This method, I call it generally grandfathered. I've been remembering this method for as long as I can remember, which is called drawing by squares. Maybe you've already heard something about him, but before I shoot this video, I decided to type a square on the internet. I made such a request, and to my surprise, the only thing that fell to me was when some school children draw in notebooks and cells, painting over these squares with markers in a checkerboard pattern or something else. This is absolutely not the case. This method, here it is absolutely suitable for everyone. If you've never drawn before, well, you really don't have any experience, so you don't need it to transfer. At the same time, this applies to any absolutely picture of any complexity. That is, some kind of image, yes. It can be some kind of ornament. It can be animals. It can be anything where there is a contour, how to transfer this contour to your sheet. It can be some cartoon characters, fairy tale characters. In general, anything, absolutely having no foundation as an artist, no skill, absolutely from scratch, anyone can do it. And believe me, a lot of problems are solved just at once. This does not apply to still life with nature. You should have exactly the picture, and it is desirable that it be a printed picture. If we draw a still life with nature, or a landscape with nature, we are already building there, we are already learning there. It will still take us some time. And if you want to learn how to draw in just one lesson in 20 minutes, then just believe me, this video is just for ye. I took this picture. I specially printed it out today, and I specially printed it out so small to show how to enlarge it. I have 2 giraffes in love here, and I will transfer them to my sheet of format of 4, and we will draw them against the background of such a beautiful African sunset. You don't have to draw this particular picture. You can print any other picture for yourself. I will also show you how to make this sunset. If you remember lesson number, in my opinion, the 2nd and 3rd in painting, where we drew stretch marks, here we will need it. Because there will be a beautiful sunset here, and we will just need the very stretches that we have been training to do. And yet, I decided to shoot this video and then put painting lessons in the playlist. There are a lot of similar pictures on the internet. You can print any picture. Just type African sunsets with elephants, or with shadows of elephants, camels, well, in general, whatever you need, whatever your heart desires. Then you type, print out the picture in whole or in part. You can just print out the animal figures. And then, just follow what I'm going to do, and do the same with your picture. What is the essence of this method? And what we will need to do? We will need to divide this picture into, for example, 16 squares. I do not know how many squares there will be. I will have to count them, well, about a centimeter at a time. So here we are going to draw vertical lines and horizontal lines with a ruler, and we will get squares. Then the same thing, if you want a 4, so that you get a picture twice as big, then you will need to make the same number of squares. If there are 16 squares here, Then we will have to make 16 squares, but these squares will no longer be 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, but 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. And then I'll tell you how to work with it. You will all get simply magnificent works. Don't forget, if you do, please, I'll ask you, I'm just very interested, if you post on your Instagram. Write the hashtag I draw with Nadia and post it under this hashtag. I will definitely look at everything. I will like everything. I will comment on everything. All right, friends, let's go. So, I took a pencil and marked 1 centimeter at the top, bottom, right, left, and make vertical, horizontal, straight lines. My pencil was very hard to see, so I took a pen. But keep in mind, pen, if you are working, then of course you only do it on a piece of paper, which we will not need later, but we do the marking on the main sheet with a pencil. Do not forget that these are the lines of construction. So after we draw giraffes, or camels, elephants, and so on, whatever you choose, we will erase this markup. So don't push the pencil too hard. And after the giraffes are all built, drawn, you can circle them with a gel pen and erase the pencil. Well, or just circle it brighter with a regular pencil. So friends, we have made a markup. And then what do? We just look at each square, so we have nothing here, no drawing. We reach the first line. The square is the one that we already have some details, right? And so, we take only this square and draw only what is in this square into the square that we have. Here we have it, and we, for example, see that where they begin. That's about it. It's about here that I begin to have these ears of his. I draw the ears. Here the edge of the ear goes a little bit beyond the line of the right one, and that's how I draw this square. You know, it may not be accurate. It may be somewhere more, somewhere less. Somewhere you are right, left 2 millimeters. Do not worry at all. This is normal. Finish to the end. Redraw each square. That is, you do not concentrate on the general figure. You take only what is directly in this square. Then we redraw this square. Then we redraw this square. Only this square. We look at what's in it. We look at what, for example. Pay attention to this square. There remains a small triangle like the sky. That is, here we are drawing. Approximately here, we see that this line comes out of the center of the square. This is about where she's going. And that's how we redraw each square by squares. We redraw. It's not difficult to take. There may be some inaccuracies from each square. You don't have to do one-on-one. Believe me, it even turns out if you flip the picture backwards and draw it backwards, then you flip this picture, and you get what you are. In general, that's what you needed. The same picture that you took, everything will turn out exactly the same. I'm talking about the fact that you can flip it, you can really do it, and just draw it like this. That is, you will get the same giraffes. You just don't think about the general shape, and take only one square, look at what's there, and draw as much as it turns out. All right, friends, let's continue. And be sure to draw directly from each square. For example, you draw a neckline, and you look where it goes. Let's say I have the first square there, separated by 1/3 from the bottom of this square here. The next square that goes from the bottom, the neck goes into the corner of the square. The next square, for example, it divides this line in half, the lower face of the square, and so on. That is, every time we look at where this line cuts into which part of the side of the lower square, if we lead the line down into a corner, or into the center, or there in 1/3 or somewhere else. And so straight from the head, you draw a line down to the trunk, then to the tail, goes into the tail, we draw the tail, and so on. That's how I'm doing now, just driving, and everything is working out fine. The fewer squares you have on the original piece of paper, the easier it will be for you, but I recommend still making squares of at least 1 centimeter. And on the sheet on your main one, you make the squares the way you want you to have. If you want a drawing twice as large, then you make 2 squares by 2 centimeters respectively. I made 1.5 centimeters, that is, I enlarged my picture 1.5 times. So, I drew giraffes, now I circle them and then carefully erase the construction lines with an eraser. That is, I'm erasing this grid here, I don't need it anymore, just like I don't need these giraffes. You know, I decided to draw another moon, such a big moon in the center, and I will probably have some kind of tree on my right, but there is already further as you want. Well, yes, it was possible, of course, to do it with a compass. I just had a glass next to me, and I decided to do it this way. Here, excuse me, my teacher's from Marha, I hope, according to the drawing, right? I hope you haven't seen this. So, we are now making a film. We still have a painting lesson, I remind you, and we are filling in a beautiful sky. I take the indigo color. At the beginning, I mix a large puddle of water with indigo in my palette and lead it down, carefully bypassing the moon. I add more blue to the bottom. I need to light up. We have a sunset, that is, it has set, right? That is, you can make a little bit of this shade of orange or red down. Then I start to lighten, that is, my giraffes, which will later be black, should be visible against this background, and carefully I go down. Incredibly, my paper was bulging this time for some reason. I just don't understand what's going on. The same paper, 300 grams per meter, Sanderson. Well, my sheet has dried up, the watercolor has become paler. That is, I say right away, you can do much brighter, because when the watercolor dries, it brightens by about 30%. And now I'm writing the moon. Well, friends, if for some reason you find it difficult to bypass the moon with paints while it is, yes, so that there is this film, then you can simply not draw it. It doesn't matter. You can draw her a very small round one as you like. That's the moon I have. I filled it with this orange and pink, mixed more water, filled it with the main color first, and then made, well, small things like this. Here. It is completely necessary to wait until your leaf is completely dry, and then we begin to actually circle our giraffes. In my case of giraffes, you circle your animals. You know, I'm working with a thin brush now, somewhere the second number, synthetic, and I'm circling with gouache. This is black gouache, because the density of gouache is much greater. Yes, you can basically do it with watercolor, but watercolor is still straight gouache. It is 100% so dense, heavy, black gouache. Here, and I use it to circle my work, my giraffes. And then, I will draw by hand. You see, I chose only. I drew giraffes using squares. You can, if you find the picture completely, where it will completely suit you, make the whole picture in squares, or if you draw only animals, that is accordingly, you will need to increase them, not by 1.5 times, but probably twice, and draw already by 4. In other words, look, watch your composition, so that they are not lonely when they are very small. Yes, then they need to be drawn larger. If, for example, you do not draw a tree, as I draw it, I don't draw on top with a pencil, but in general it's watercolor, it's completely dried up, and it was quite possible to take a pencil, and therefore draw on top first with a pencil, and then circle with gouache. Friends, some of you may ask, the same can be done with carbon paper. You know, I'll give you a few of these points. The fundamental one is that you simply have a carbon copy. Well, it loses to this method of transferring a drawing. Well, first of all, you can copy a carbon copy, only of the same size of the object, that is, giraffes 1 and 1. Yes, the second point After all, with a carbon copy, there is no moment of learning. Here you can say that we don't connect the head either, we just stupidly transfer, copying, but you know, right now I did it. I counted 6 by 8 squares, 6 on top of 8 vertically. In total I got 48 squares, but for example, next time you can make not 48 squares, but for example 36 squares. And the next time you can make 24 squares, then 12, then 8. Thus, you make fewer squares each time, and thus they will be larger in size. And in this way you also learn. You seem to complicate the task for yourself every time. And you can thus bring the number of squares up to, for example, only 8 squares, or up to 4 squares, which in general you will train, and subsequently you may not make this grid at all. Just try, draw, and I'm sure, well, just believe me, everyone will succeed. This is the trick with these squares. I'm just drawing absolutely any trees right now. For my head I tried to make them look like such African trees. Here I threw a little birds. Here, but then there are already some elements, maybe some blades of grass, birds, something else, some kind of bush. You decide for yourself what it will be. And in general, here's a picture like this. Any schoolboy, I think, can cope with it. I don't just randomly choose a task for my lessons. I make sure that they are within the power of beginners. If you have passed my lessons before, then you will definitely cope with this lesson. So watch my videos further. They will be gradually we will complicate this task. Well, this is the picture I got. Thank you very much for watching. All the best, and see you again.